my most abundant currency is not money, it's relationship in my life.
My guest, Sarah Grady, is a former psychotherapist turned spiritual teacher, author, and doula. She guides women who feel lost in their lives to find their way back home. Through a process that she's created, which she calls homecoming, Sarah teaches women how to access the wisdom of their bodies so they can unapologetically align with a life that lights them up. We're going to talk about her journey and the life she's lived and the experiences she's had around identity and transformation and relationship. Sarah, welcome to the Lisa LaCroix Show.
Oh, thank you so much. It is such a blessing to be here.
I like to start my conversations with people asking if there's something from your childhood or something from your early years or your family of origin that you think informs or has had an impact on who you are today and the work that you're doing in the world.
So my parents separated when I was 6, divorced when I was 7, and they had joint custody. So my brothers and I switched homes every Friday. And so from age 7 to 18, I lived out of a suitcase. I packed up bags and went to the opposite parent's house. And it wasn't until I was in college that I had like one set of anything. But I think the imprinting from so much movement at a young age set me up to be a world traveler. And so I've lived all over the country. I've lived in Latin America. I have mostly traveled around the globe alone. I really feel like that was the seed of what created my body of work this lifetime and what I'm here to show up in service to.
You told me the story of this relational journey you've had that is so unique and that I was fascinated by because there's so many aspects of identity relating to gender and how men and women relate to each other. Share some of that journey that you've been on that's highly unique with my audience.
Relationship, particularly with boys my age, was very challenging, pretty much non-existent. And I just so badly wanted a boyfriend. I hadn't even been kissed and I was almost 18 years old. And yet I knew I was built for this thing called love. So I had my first boyfriend when I was senior in high school, and he turned out to be gay. And that we were together for, like a year or so. He even moved to Boston to be with me when I got into college in Boston. And pretty much immediately after we both got to Boston, he came out to me. And that really set the imprint, Lisa, for this like kind of flip switch experience, right? Where I would dive really deep, really quickly with somebody and be like, oh, there's this spark and the shamanic kind of journey. And then I'd be like, JK, you're not really who I thought you were. And I, as a young girl who just wanted to be loved, right? Like I really had to go on a journey of initiation and discernment. And so, I experienced trauma and I experienced hardships in that department. And I was 23. I had just moved to Los Angeles, ended up being in a super abusive relationship, and was lucky enough. There was a lot of grace involved in me extricating myself from that man. After I kicked him out of our apartment and basically like changed everything, my bank account information, locks on my doors, my email address, phone number, like changed it all. A dear friend of mine from college who lived in Santa Cruz, California at the time, she said, why don't you come up and just visit me, get away, heal. So I lived in LA. I drove up the 5 to Santa Cruz and got to this magical little town. And I walked into a bar and there was my friend. And next to her was this woman. And I like immediately felt something in my body and I was like, oh shit, no, but I'm straight, right? I'm a straight woman. and this woman like pursued me pretty hard, like sending me mixed CDs, and the whole nine back in the 90s and early 2000s.
Yep.
And eventually I just caved in and I was like, okay, there's an experience that I need to have. And I came up to Santa Cruz and allowed myself to have an experience of being intimate with a woman for the first time in my life. And it did something so profound for me on a cellular level. It makes me emotional to think about now. Like, I really was able to heal a lot of the sexual and emotional trauma that I had been through with that abusive partner, and to just feel safe again, being in my body and in pleasure. And I am forever grateful to that first female partner and what she gave to me. But, and gender was it always up as an identity issue for her. And by the end of our time together, you know, pronouns on their end had been changed. The way in which we were sexually relating to each other needed to change. And this person, you know, was basically identifying as male. I got very clear that that was not for me. Like, if I was going to be with a woman, I wanted to be with a woman who loved being a woman and with other women. Like, I wanted that full feminine experience. So we moved on from each other, but with a lot of respect and gratitude. And I went back to dating men for a while until I met another female partner and had a beautiful and long relationship with my ex-fiance. We were together almost 5 years, engaged to be married, and was very grateful for that relationship. But ultimately, within the container of that relationship, I kept feeling like something was missing. And I couldn't reconcile how I could love someone so much and even fall more in love with them, and yet simultaneously know, like, I'm not supposed to build a life with this person. Like, something's off. And I couldn't name it. And at that time, I was in my late 20s, beginning to be early 30s, and my biological clock was really ticking. And so I was like walking down the street looking at men and basically just like wet in my pants. And I was like, oh my God, there's something happening. And I had kind of a defining moment dream where I woke up writhing in orgasm from a dream that I had had with a man. And I remember thinking, oh shit, she can hear me. And I turned down and she was fast asleep. And like, her beautiful curly hair was just splayed out on the pillow. And I just kind of like took this scan of our apartment together in Oakland. And I was like, this isn't my life. Like, she's not my partner. This isn't my home. I was still a psychotherapist at the time. I was like, this is not my career. Like, I'm burnt out. Like, I gotta go. And I packed up my bags, left California, moved back to the East Coast, to Asheville, North Carolina. And I took a year to just kind of heal in the mountains. And I started dating men again. And that kind of set off a 7-year cycle of profound initiation and healing with male-bodied people in all forms, like not just in my romantic life, but in spiritual containers, in professional containers, just as friendships. But it was interesting, kind of the pattern that seemed to follow me, which was I actually had yet another partner, but this time male. He was like, you know, jacked, 6'2", ex-military special forces kind of guy, like, come to me one morning and say, I think I might be a woman. Like, there's a part of me that needs to be explored. I was like, what's that to my forehead? Like, regardless of the gender, people seem to just want to change it when they're in relationship with me. And again, just like I had with that female partner, I had the same experience of like internal grief and knowing, because I was like, I'm not your girl. I'm not the person that's going to walk through this transition with you. Like, if I'm going to be with a man, I want to be with a man who loves being a man. And if I'm with a woman, I want to be with a woman who loves being a woman. Like, there's something about the clarity and the solidity in.
It's almost about the polarity. What do you make of the fact that you've had this highly unusual repeating theme in your life?
In my personal life, just as in my professional, I hold very safe space it's very important for people to feel safe in my presence.
Mm-hmm.
I think in part because I have felt the opposite so often. So I really make a point of creating safety. And when people feel safety, Lisa, right, all the stuff comes up and out, right? They feel free to finally be who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a way, I have felt very blessed and honored to bear witness to my ex-lovers and their process, whether it was around gender identity or sexuality or other aspects of self. It's like, oh, wow, I'm so grateful the safety of our container enabled you to be more free and whole to who you actually are. I don't want to do that work in my bedroom anymore. But, I do feel blessed in that way.
Yeah.
In a lot of my movement, travel and moving all over the place and exploration, like I've been very open to life, not just being open to anything that life sends my way, but to actually, and this is a deep healing from my childhood where I felt like I never got to ask for what I want, or if I did, I'd be punished. But as an adult, to say, no, I'm very clear about who I am and what I want. How I identify now is a straight cisgendered woman who wants a heteronormative monogamous relationship. And I know it to my core, Lisa, because I've tried everything else.
Yeah.
I've been open to the other experiences and in earnest have tried. And all the other experiences have left me feeling less of myself. I don't want to do that work in my bedroom anymore. So I'm 38 years old. I left my ex-fiance when I was 31. And I just thought, well, I did the big, brave thing. I left the person that wasn't right. And I got clear. I want to be with men again. And I'm going to do this healing work. So like the divine's just going to send me this amazing man, right? So much healing work I had to do before that man, whoever he is going to come into my reality. When I was with my ex-fiance, it was like, I knew I was really good at it. I loved building a home with her. I loved coming home from work and making dinner. I loved going on adventures. I loved having hard conversations. I loved being physically intimate and growing that part of our life. Like I loved being quiet in the same room together. Like I just knew I was built for it. I was just doing it with the wrong person. And so every man that came on my path after her, I was kind of like this huntress. I was like, oh, are you it? I was like, whoa. And now 7 years later, I've kind of tempered that. And I'm like, he's coming. It's kind of imminent and inevitable. I'm not really worried about that. And at 38, I don't feel any of the old stories that maybe my mom's generation or older generations felt around fertility or being an old maiden or like any of that. I'm like, I'm vibrant, gorgeous, healthy, alive. Like we get here. The beauty, though, in the last 7 years is that I've had a lot of practice in cultivating healthy relationships with men in non-romantic containers. And mostly, I would say 50-50 friendships and then 50-50 like mentors and collaborators. These are like high caliber men who are doing work on themselves, who are showing up in service to the planet, who are really in integrity with their energy, their language, their creative life force energy or sexual energy. They're committed to purpose. They take care of their bodies. I mean, these are exemplary men. And the really beautiful thing about that is that because they're clean and I'm clean, the energy between us is clean. There's no funkiness there, right? And I should say that most of the men I have really strong connections with are married or partnered. So like the sexual piece is inherently kind of taken off the table. But even men that are not partnered, it's like we're not presencing that current of energy. I've had really deep relationships with women my whole life, really profound friendships. Often say to people that my most abundant currency is not money, it's relationship in my life. And beautiful. I take maintaining relationship and cultivating it very seriously because at the end of the day, like we're all we have,
Totally.
And I want to measure my life in love, not to be cliche rent about it, but
how does all of this learning, this personal journey, this richness, this exploration and commitment to relationship relate to the work that you do that you call homecoming?
In my book, I often talk about how homecoming is the process of trying on everything that is not home, so that we can come back into that which actually is home. And as a woman that's moved around a lot and had many, many, many homes, I really understand that home is not a physical place. It can be, it certainly can be, but that home it's a resonance, it's a frequency, it's an energetic experience that we have. And we can never know how to register that external to ourselves unless we've done the work of feeling what that is inside. We live in incredibly turbulent times. And so we have one crisis and trauma and distraction after another pulling us outside of ourself, off center, off kilter, out of home. We're not home. And it can be really scary to get home, right? Because that means we have to feel things. We have to confront things that maybe we'd rather not. But there's a really deep liberation when a person, regardless of gender, unequivocally knows who they are and operates from that place in the world. So my book, Homecoming, I don't know if you can see this, is called A Feminine GPS for a Lost World. It's based on a body of work that I channeled called The Seven Sacraments of the Goddess. And you can read about that story and how that wildness came to me and through me. My book is also in audiobook form. So if your audience is more interested in listening to that, you can just skip straight to my personal story on how this all came to be. But what I would say is, I grew up in Cary, North Carolina, suburb of Raleigh, like subdivision strip mall America. There was nothing unique about it, nothing authentic about where I grew up. And so I always knew it wasn't home. I was like, well, This isn't home. This isn't how I want to feel. And what was happening on a daily basis inside of my physical homes with my family of origin, I was like, well, this shit isn't home either. So like, I'm going to go find home wherever that is. I remember moving to Boston for college and being like, oh, for the first time, I feel at home.
Yeah.
I'm living in a physical environment that reflects back to me my own essence. I'm going to school with and studying with people who operate on my same wavelength, have the same creative pursuits and intelligences. And I'm having a relationship with my body that I never got to have before. And it's far healthier than it used to be. And so that kind of started this foundational experience of what I would now call homecoming. And then I just kind of moved all over the country practicing and flexing that muscle throughout different careers, different partnerships, different cities. I wanted to know what felt like home.
Yeah.
And not in a narrow way, but in an expansive, voracious, adventurous way. And, make no mistake, when we go on the journey of homecoming, it's not for the faint of heart. Whoever's listening to this right now might be inside of a really horrible marriage or in a dead-end career or just really uninspired in the place that they live. And just like me waking up to my ex-fiance and leaving her and being like, okay, well, I did the hard thing. Like the good thing's going to come now, right? It's often not that, right? We liberate ourselves from the things that are not home. And we have to go on a deep journey of cultivating what is. And so this book and this process is the steering wheel to help you on that journey.
We've come to a place in our world where there are so many options available to us in every way, and so much stimulus and so much information coming at us all the time that I feel we're collectively highly overwhelmed by opportunities and choice. And so the idea of going on that lesser known, sometimes harder journey of coming to the truth of who we are. Wow. So needed. And so much the starting point of what we have to happen and what the opportunity is for us. So that's beautiful. You started to talk a little bit about the things that, if someone's listening to this right now, and I really appreciate that you mentioned someone listening to this right now might be in a situation that they don't want to be in, whether it's relationship or work, and that there's hope for all of us, that we always get to transform. We always get to change and grow. just so we have a sense of a little taster of what's an example of a ritual that someone might read about in homecoming that could bring them a little bit closer to maybe to themselves and to the home that is them.
There's two things that come to mind. One is I would love to just share what the sacraments are, because in the writing of this book and in the living of the work, I recognize that just speaking them out loud, which is the 7-part process, right, actually activates us on a cellular level, because each sacrament correlates to one of the main 7 chakras in the energy body.
Let's do it.
Yeah. If you're listening to this, just inviting you to focus at the base of your spine on the first chakra. And it is the first sacrament, which is slow down, slow way down. Just notice what happens to your body when you hear the words slow down, slow way down. Then we move that up to the second chakra, just below the navel. And it's the second sacrament of honor your body as a temple. And just really feel, not as a cliche, but as a truth, like, what if you interacted with your body as a sacred, holy place? How would that inform how you move through the world? And then moving up to the navel, the third chakra, third sacrament, which is no apologies. No apologies. And then we move up to the heart chakra, fourth sacrament, which is just heart compass. So there's a whole teaching in the book about the directional compass of the heart and its electromagnetic field. Then we move up to the throat chakra, and that is the fifth sacrament, known as gather your people. Because we are not supposed to do homecoming alone. And then we move up to the sixth chakra, just between, the third eye there. And the sixth sacrament is above all else, trust yourself. So physically, above all the other sacraments, trust yourself, your inner vision, your inner knowing. And then we get to the seventh sacrament at the crown of the head, the seventh chakra, which is embrace the mystery. So these sacraments are very simple, obviously. I didn't say anything weird or wackadoodle, right? They're just very simple. But when we actually go to study them and embody them, it becomes a much more profound practice. And I have found that energy moves pretty quickly when I do. Even if it's just not apologizing for something that I normally would have, can revolutionize an entire day.
Not apologizing for something I normally would have can revolutionize an entire day. I love it. I love not just not apologizing, but that some small choice that is a reclamation of self can revolutionize. The transformation can happen from the smallest thing.
Yeah. In fact, actually, that's mostly how it happens. This is a daily practice. Like every morning at my altar, I light a candle, I make my coffee, and I call in the sacraments and I go, okay, which one is guiding me today? Like I, Sarah, don't have to know. There is something larger holding me that is keeping me intact and whole and at home in myself, so that when I show up, I'm here. And that's going to keep me on track the rest of my life. So I think the other thing that's important to say is, like, I grew up as a dancer. I have 2 degrees in theater. So the body is core and central to this teaching. So when we feel not at home in ourselves, we're checked out, we're out to lunch, the first and only invitation ever is to come back to the body. And that's what these will do for you, right? Then everything else can flow from there. So then you ask for a ritual. And the first ritual that comes to mind is related to the fire. Just a very simple, burn ceremony. What I love doing is, writing down a list of all the things that I'm ready to let go of. And it might be related to a certain part of my life or a certain relationship. And I just write and write and write ad nauseum until I can't write anymore, or I speak into the fire until I can't speak anything else. And then I burn the piece of paper. And after the piece of paper is burned, I blow the candle out and I move on. I should say this is a 3-part ritual. So we burn, we release, we let go, and we trust the alchemy of the fire to do that work for us. It's done. Then we go to forgive, right? So we let go of the energy not serving us, but it's very important that we forgive ourselves and others involved so that we don't go to recreate that same situation or pattern, right? We make peace with it. And so I relight the candle and I forgive myself, and I write or I speak into the fire all the things that need to be forgiven. When then that feels complete, I blow out the candle. And then I relight the candle for the 3rd part, which is reclaim. So then I write down or I speak all the things that I am now ready to reclaim about this part of my life. And then I blow the candle out at the end to really like seal the practice. And I really trust that the fire did the work for me. It's out of my hands. I don't have to do anything anymore. You can do this with water as well. Water is the element connected to the 2nd sacrament. So I do a water ritual in chapter 2. But effectively, all the rituals that I use in my book are earth-based.
Well, I'm excited to get it, to read it, and to listen to it. So is there anything else that you want to share, and maybe also make sure that people know how they can follow you and how they can know more about the work that you're doing and be connected?
I guess the thing that's on my heart to share is like, I work with people of all ages and backgrounds. One of my favorite clients was a 70-year-old woman last year. At 38, you might look at me and go, well, what does she know about divorce? What does she know about retirement? What does she know about childbirth? I mean, I am a doula, but like, what does she know? And the truth is, every single person, if you're in a body on the planet, you are on a homecoming journey. You've either had experiences that took you out of a sense of home and you're trying to find your way back, or you just landed back and now you want to share that with other people. Part of why I included my personal memoir in this book is because I've been through some shit, like I am an initiated woman in many areas of my life. And I've had to pick myself up and rise like the phoenix again and again and again. And so maybe I don't know about divorce or retirement or being, in menopause, but I know what it's like to go through an initiation and to come out on the other side. And I will midwife you every step of the way to help you get there.
I have a model of artful aging. There are 4 pillars to it. And in the model of artful aging, one of the key principles is reinvention. And under the principle and pillar of reinvention is the idea of bidirectional learning. And that is that in order to be someone who is aging artfully, you need to be not only mentoring and supporting people of other stages, but also learning from them too. And so I think it's a beautiful thing. Anytime we're in the stage of like one directional, like top down idea of where information transfers, we're in ossification. Children are the ones who guide us and lead us. They're the ones that we need to be listening to. And I know that for me personally, so much of the information that I want to learn, I always go to my young friends, to the people in other generations, because they're the ones who are going to, like I tell my kids, I've never been a 25-year-old in this time period. So I need to know from you, how do I parent a 25-year-old in this time period, so.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Just to support the fact that, of course, there's so much for someone in their 70s to gain from your experience and wisdom. And just like you mentioned, we're all on a homecoming journey. We're all aging. So let's all do it artfully. So artful aging is artful aging just for those of us who are over 50, but we're all on an aging journey too. So, yes, please share where people can learn more, where they can follow you, where Absolutely. They can connect with you.
my website is sarah-grady.com. And I'm pretty active on Instagram. So that's just at Sarah with an H, B, the letter B, Grady, Sarah B. Grady. A little bit on Facebook, but mostly Instagram. And I love sharing content there. And I really love when people send me direct messages and we can really build a relationship. I mentor women one-on-one. I also teach classes, online immersions, all kinds of things. My deepest prayer is an original return to a dream I had pre-COVID, which is to open up my own women's center. So God willing, under the auspices of this fire, I'll get to have a brick and mortar here in North Carolina at some point in the next few years. But until then, you can find me on the interwebs.
So it is. Yeah, beautiful. And I will put all that information in the show notes so people can find you there. Thank you so much. I just find talking with you so inspiring. I love how you articulate things in such beautifully nuanced ways and how much depth you're able to bring into the way that you bring yourself, bring your whole self to even this connection across space and time.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It's a real joy to speak with you, and I mean that.
Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to hit subscribe and follow along. You can hit the notification button. And if you want to see some other videos, you can check out these two in the meantime. See you next time.